It's Monday, February 28th, 2022. I'm Steve Sersky, and this here is episode number 29 of my podcast. Today I have interpreter, translator, and teacher Qian Wang with me. We're going to talk. We actually met a couple of months ago last year at the Internations meetup here in Beijing. We were introduced by a mutual friend, and she agreed to come onto the show today to talk about some of her experiences in learning languages and teaching them. So she is a Chinese teacher and an English teacher as well. So she teaches Chinese to a lot of foreigners and English to Chinese students. So she has a very unique perspective of how to learn languages and some of the what would you call it, the gauntlet that you have to go through in order to learn and fully grasp a language. It's very interesting to talk to her because she's as a professional interpreter and translator as well. So she gets to go to some of these neat high-level meetings and offer her services as a basically a language conduit. So here is episode 29 with Qian Wang. Uh, Enjoy.
Hi, long
Hi.
time.
Oh, good. How was class?
Busy and okay.
How many students showed up today?
I don't have big classes. Today is only one-on-one.
Oh, I see. Okay, okay. That's not bad. How were they today? Were they participative? Were they active, or were they rather dull and they're like, ugh, don't want to go through another class?
It's okay with one-on-one. They're always very energetic. So, and normally it's actually I'm teaching Chinese, so it's good.
Right. Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's probably a good idea. And what books are you using for your Chinese right now? Like, are you
What
it's not HSK, is it?
Sometimes if the students really want to pass the test, yes. Otherwise, I'll find other documents or books.
Like what?
Depends on the needs. Like uh, like what is the English name for that? Short-term spoken Chinese.
Oh,
You
that
know
one.
this?
Yes, that's my textbook.
I really, this one is good. The grammar size is really good.
The grammar's a little bit easier in the short-term books, I think,
Compare with what?
compared with the HSK books. The HSK books are insane. But
Really?
I think because the short-term ones you could probably do on your own. It's nice to have a teacher, but you don't have to. Whereas with the HSK 5 books, I mean, you need a teacher to take you through it, or else it doesn't make sense. It's
And
too
really,
Yeah,
because normally teachers prefer this short-term spoken Chinese for grammar teaching, and later maybe with HSK, but I don't like that book too much. So
why
I
not?
find other material because normally my students are adults,
Yeah.
and that book is mainly focused on like overseas students in China. So they are talking about schools, students, library, post office.
Yeah.
Uh,
So it's more conversational topics that you're using, not academic.
yeah, it's just something more practical or more interesting for both of us.
That's what my teacher said too. Like, I guess, like, I signed up for group classes, and the first I showed up with the HSK 5 books, the blue ones, and then also I had the blue one of the spoken short-term spoken book. So not pre-inter. I don't know what it's called anymore. But they're like, yeah, we're not doing HSK 5 because it wasn't as conducive to conversation. So the other students in my class, they wanted to use the conversational book, not the HSK 5 books. I think I'm
What are the other no,
well,
books?
I'm the only one doing the HSK 5 books, so like no
Okay,
one else is going to do the test. Everybody else is
right.
they are the German girl. She I think she works. I'm not sure if she works in a German company or a Chinese company, but I think she has a lot of Chinese colleagues, and so like her spoken Chinese is fantastic. There's another guy, he's very good. His spoken Chinese is very good as well. He's very good. But I don't think either of them are doing the HSK5. Whereas I told my teacher, I'm like, I just want to do the certificate. I want it on a piece of paper. That's it.
Okay. Do you think the HSK5 textbook is helping with the exam?
Well, the practice tests, I mean, because it comes with a bunch of practice tests, and I have a bunch of practice tests. So I mean, I've just been trying that. It's a lot of reading, and the speaking is sorry, the listening portion is I should understand it, but I don't, and it's the most frustrating thing ever because it's just like I if and I try to only do it once, like you have it in the test, right? Like you only have one time to listen to it. You can't rewind. But I feel that if I did rewind and I listened to it 2 or 3 times, I might be able to get it. But on the first listen, I think the last test I got was 9 out of 31. So of the practice test, I got 9 correct out of 31 questions, and so that's like a 30% answer or percentage. Yeah. So
Did you analyze why you cannot understand for the first time?
because I don't know what they're saying.
So
Oh,
not enough
well,
practice of listening.
I do half an hour to an hour of listening every day, but I don't do concentrated listening. I think I understand what you mean.
You should.
What do you mean by listening? How would I practice my listening?
You can do dictation, 5 minutes dictation only. And not 5 minutes, sorry. You can do 1 or 2 minutes dictation. That already will take you 40 minutes every day.
Yeah, and that's a long time to spend listening to very slow Chinese.
Not slow Chinese, it could be a little bit faster, but you need to listen at least 4 times.
Oof. Wow, who has time for that? I need it
Come
now. I need
on,
it quick, fast, go, go, go. I need to understand now.
that's
I
how we learn English.
Yeah. Did you guys do
We all,
dictations? A lot of dictations over and over again?
I did.
Yeah. Okay, so
That payback.
okay, look at this. We're conducting the podcast in English and not in Chinese, so I guess your method works better than mine of Kuaidiyar. My Kuaidiyar method
We
is losing.
can.
So you're all ready to go. You have your camera and your microphone. I mean, I don't think you have a microphone, do you?
I think this is okay. Or do I
Yes.
need a microphone?
No, it sounds fine. It's good. Okay. And I will enable you to record as well. So if you want to do that on your computer, just in case, that's fine. So that's that. Other than that, welcome to the show. Thanks for making the time today. I know you're a busy lady.
Thank you for having me.
Are you actually like very busy? I mean, because during Spring Festival you took a week off. You went back to your hometown. Um, I mean, how's business these days?
It's okay. I still teach on campus, so that actually takes me most of my energy. I need to prepare a lot for the course, and the rest I just teach some Chinese and English one-on-one, and I also do some interpreting or translation if I have time.
Which do you prefer? Do you prefer the translation interpretation or do you prefer the teaching?
Well, both, but if I may choose, interpreting more. But just at this moment, it's our low season, so I don't have I don't really have a choice.
What do you mean it's a low season? I didn't know interpretation had a season.
Right, we have low. All the business have low season and peak season, right? So it depends. Currently, it's winter. It's just after Chinese New Year, and we haven't had 2 sessions yet. So there's not much going on. Only after the national conference, the other activities can be held.
When's the national conference? Is that March? At the end of March, isn't it?
Yeah, beginning of March
Beginning of
every
Oh,
year.
so that's next week. Oh, okay.
Yes, yeah. Looking
And
forward to have
do
that finished.
Do you ever get work at the sessions, or no? That's other people.
No, that's almost impossible. Like they have this in-house interpreter. They are
Right.
well trained for this, yeah, international or national level conference.
Hmm. What's the difference in training? I mean, interpretation is interpretation, isn't it?
You need to know how the government work report uh, organized. You need to know all these official. You need to know all the official expressions, and you need to take notes. You need know all these backgrounds or situations. So that also help you to make no mistake while interpreting.
Has that ever
That's
happened?
a lot.
Have you ever made a
Right?
mistake during interpretation?
Of course, everyone did.
Was it a bad mistake or not a bad mistake?
That's okay. Normally, there's no major mistake. Otherwise, that could really lead to a disaster.
Yeah. Do you remember what the mistake was? You don't have to give us exact details, but what it was sort of about generally.
Not really, but sometimes maybe just like difficult terminology, or if the speaker have very strong accent, that could be really challenging for interpreters
Right.
and also now.
Yeah. So, are you allowed to take notes when you're doing interpretation? Like you can make notes, or is it all confidential? You can't do anything like that.
It depends. And in most scenarios, we can, but if it's simultaneous, we don't have time to take notes. We listen, we interpret, and we forget.
Do you, so is it, I mean, interpretation, is it a lot of forgetting? Like you, once you're done the job, it's just like, all right, head to the pub. Do you go to the pub after? Is that what the interpreters do? Or is it, what's the process of forgetting?
No, no, it's just because we need all this space to be spaced out so we can remember, listen and remember more things. But after the meeting, of course, we have a general idea. But if you ask us all these details, I'm not sure I can give you. But if it's consecutive, I put it down on or on my notebook that I can give you a story.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. So do you find it fun to be able to like listen in Chinese into this year and then like speaking English? Because you're doing Mandarin to English, right? Or do you do something else?
Yeah, well, two ways, two ways.
So you do both, English into
English.
Chinese as well?
Yes, the same. Yeah, in China, because there's not enough foreigners who can speak good English. So in China, we always do two ways.
Foreigners don't speak good English?
Foreigners don't speak good Chinese,
Right. Oh, okay. Right. That's so
so they can
how,
interpreter for the other side.
are there any foreigners that actually do interpretation in Chinese? Like have you seen?
I never saw one, but there are several very famous ones in
Right.
China.
Oh, okay. So how is it? I mean, you listen and you speak. I mean, how do you what is the what's the feeling like to be able to do that? Because I'll tell you, I'm struggling as a Chinese language student myself. I mean, I listen to I listen to my teacher and I go, I I I heard what you said. I don't understand what you said though at all. I mean, could you say it again at about half speed, please?
Right. It's sometimes quite challenging, but if you can do it, you feel like very fulfilling and you actually like feel like a surgeon. You feel this adrenaline, yeah, rising up. So you feel happiness. That's most the major reason that drive us, yeah, on this way. Otherwise, it's just hard work. And you
Adrenaline?
also learning. Yes, yes. It's like
Adrenaline
a
in
challenge.
interpretation? I mean, you're so is that the same as like kickboxing and skydiving, or is it a different level of adrenaline?
Not that much, but yeah, something like that. Yes, for skydiving, it's just too much for me. I would never go that far. But you think about yourself, like standing on the stage, everybody's watching you 200%. persons, and you are on the spotlight and you are not sure what's coming next. So that's all. Yeah.
That's a goal. I mean, I'd love to be able to do that. I mean, maybe I'll join you one day in the interpretation circles. Probably a little bit farther away, but how long did it take you then to? Because I mean, Chinese students study English through from like birth until after the Gaokao, right?
Yes.
But your English is obviously higher level than probably most of the kids who graduate high school English. I mean, this is in Canada, we have the same thing where we have standardized English or French classes. But I mean, when you graduate grade 12, you're not really able to communicate very well. I mean, how long did it take you to get to the level of being an interpreter?
Right. Forever.
Aside from the fact that life is a lifelong learning process and blah blah blah, but I mean you get paid as a professional interpreter. I mean, was it how many did you spend a lot of time after university, or was it you graduated and you were basically working as an interpreter?
Well, so my major actually in both, so undergraduate and graduate are both English. But I think if after undergraduate, after the bachelor degree, I cannot really dive into this interpreting market. And I worked in an English environment, later with professional translation and interpreting training. And now here I am.
So, did you do a master's degree too, or did you
I
just get a
did.
job? Okay. So what's your bachelor's and master's are both in English. What do you mean by they're in English?
In English, sorry. So bachelor is business English.
Okay.
So have some
Famous.
focus. You
Yeah.
don't understand business English either. I understand. That means we use English. We learn English, and we also learn some, like for example, accounting and
Yeah.
other business concept. So and for master is for simultaneous interpreting.
Right. Okay. How long was your master's? 1
We
or 2 years?
2 years in China. Shortest is 2 years.
Jeez, that's intense. Did you do a lot of interpreting in class as well, or was it more theory?
No theory.
No theory.
We studied the theory before the entrance. If we already pass this program, that means we have already studied and we have been tested with translation and everything.
So what do you do for 2
That's
years in an interpretation master's? I mean, how much do you need to know to interpret something? You either know the languages or you don't.
dermatologist, oncology. All these terms I don't know before.
So like
Oh,
specialized
oh,
vocabulary?
3D printing. It's like more like teaching you a way how to do this preparing, how to check information. So you know how to prepare yourself. But meanwhile, you also need to accumulate all these blocks
Mm-hmm.
and
What
not
would
only prepare before the meeting. You don't have enough time.
Yeah, I mean, because as an interpreter, you're called and you go and you just start listening and speaking, right?
Yeah, and that's not okay. Yeah. Even before the conference, we need a lot of preparing. But before that, we also need to learn. Is this seriously? It's a lifetime learning.
It can't be. You're not that old yet, right?
Hopefully, in the future.
What was the so you mentioned like oncology, 3D printing. What were some of the hardest terms for you to learn, either in English or in Chinese to to translate and interpret on the spot?
Medical terms, for sure.
Hmm.
But actually, all kinds of industries have their own terminology that we need to learn, either fashion or like say technology, vehicles, all this financial markets also especially has a lot of terms which I may also not understand in Chinese. I need to learn the Chinese meaning beforehand.
Yeah. So
New concept.
it sounds like your master's was a lot of just intensive vocabulary study. Like, did you just read the dictionary? That's all.
We learn the knowledge we prepare, and we also do a lot of translation. When we find the difference or beauty of the two languages, and we practice a lot. We need to make sure like every word is correct, and we indeed check every word and make a lot of notes. We studied until midnight and normally even later.
What time did you get up?
As far
8, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock? What time was your first class?
the first class so it varies normally at 8, but I normally wake up or get up at 6:30.
Right. So you'd study until midnight and then get up at 6:30.
Yeah.
And were you studying at
Why this
6:30 in
is
the
new
morning?
to you? This is normal thing student lives.
Well, I
Yeah.
was talking to a colleague, and he was listening to what I was talking about getting up. I've started doing morning workouts, and so like I get up at 5. My alarm goes off at 5:43. I get out of bed at like 6:05, so it's a 20-minute delay. But his goal was actually to do more language study in the morning than a workout, and I'm going.
That's very good.
I used to do that and I found it horrible because my brain doesn't wake up. A workout is a different type of muscle group compared to a language. Like language, you need to have your eyes not clouded, you have to have your brain turned on, and you have to be able to sit still. I guess, or do you not sit still? Like, do you pace around the room and review vocab? So, how did you study in the morning?
Well, I didn't mention that, but I do. Yeah. So first breakfast and coffee, and then just read the English books or vocabulary or anything.
Which one is it?
You have a
Vocabulary or
clear
books? Because I
mind.
mean, if I'm just going through 100 words in Chinese characters, I mean, by character number 56, I'm like, outside looks very nice compared to this vocab list that I'm looking at.
You don't have to finish this 100 like one in one day. You can do 30 per day, and then you repeat a lot. You can do, for example, 50 every week. And you just repeat, and you will memorize it. It's very helping.
But the Chinese HSK 5 level has 2,500 words. If I went 30 a day, it's going to take me a very long time to do. I gotta quite like fast 100 characters a day, and
You can
even
only
then you're
remember.
looking at how long, like 250 days. I mean, it's insane.
Then
25
give yourself 60 days. Yeah. See,
60
25
days.
days, see?
Well, a couple of months. Yeah, it's I don't know. I was just watching this YouTube video about how this guy was like, you can learn any language in 6 months. He came to China in the 80s, and he was fluent in 6 months. I'm like, I think you're full of shit. I don't believe you, because I mean, there's a difference between learning Chinese, like spoken Chinese, and being able to read and write in Chinese, which is very different.
True,
So, with
true.
your students, I mean, because you're a teacher as well, which do you emphasize more? Do you emphasize like the spoken, the listening, or like the reading and writing in terms of studies?
Normally, actually, students have their demand, and normally that is speaking part and listening, of course, so conversational, because most times they are in China, they have this strong urge that they need to understand, they need to survive. So this will be my focus, but I also suggest that you don't start learning these Chinese characters too late. Otherwise, you are just confusing yourself, because one son who be reading very different millions have very different writings. So if you postpone it until too late, and then you like your brain's like confusing yourself.
So, when should people, I guess not just foreigners, but like anybody who's studying the Chinese language, when should they start tackling the characters?
And normally after I taught pinyin and like some basic sentences, so normally let's say 15 hours, 20 hours, then I was already start introduce Chinese character with this.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. And which character do you introduce first? E? E, R, san, se. I mean, those are the easiest ones. U. I mean, one, two, three, four, five.
Yes, one, two, three. Only one, two, three. That's hung, horizontal hung. That's it. But even with pinyin, I already put Chinese characters on it, so give you an impression about this is Chinese characters, or already get a little bit familiar with that. Yeah.
So, in your experience in having learned English and having learned how to interpret and translate, are they? Can you use the same methods as you use to learn English to learn Chinese?
Generally, I think you can, but of course, there are differences such as characters. But like the learning method, I think for each language is actually quite similar. You can really use it among not only Chinese English or Spanish or any other language.
So you're saying there's one method to learn a language, and it's just copy paste that method onto learning. In 6 months, you're an expert.
I never say 6 months. I said forever. Depends on what level you want to have.
Do you
Not everyone become interpreter.
Right. And no, because interpretation is a skill, and then you have to have the patience for it and the brain capacity to be able to, be that conduit between those two languages. Um, do you remember what your English was like when you left high school? Like, do you have any recordings of that, or did you not do that back then?
I can talk. I also went to Germany for a short term, very short time,
Okay.
and we already can communicate with all these high school students from Germany. So, yeah, the conversational level is okay.
How long were you in Germany for?
8 days, 1 week or two, I think maybe 2 weeks.
Oh, that's
It's
I mean
like
that
a very short
that's very
program,
short.
but
That's like
it's
a
like the first
stopover.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's like a first time in life, you know. It's yeah, very different.
Did you find that the English language that you had learned in high school was useful on the ground in the country? Or was it like you had to learn a whole bunch of new stuff? You're like, they didn't teach us this. They didn't make it. We weren't prepared.
No, it's I we I'm not sure. It's like, but before, like when we went to Germany, our English language is relatively okay or sufficient with communication purpose. But I remember we visited some car companies and also like either a mayor or governor introduce their parliament sense and all this Congress concept. We have zero knowledge and we don't understand nothing. So yeah, that's challenging. But when we talk with the students, our peers, it's okay.
Right. Okay. Do you remember your high school, your English teachers throughout school? Like, do any of them sort of stand out as your inspiration to become an interpreter and a translator and a teacher yourself?
I like Sarah English teachers of mine, um, but they are not the reasons that I've become interpreter. But indeed, the one actually who took us to Germany is like really quite inspiring for us. As he had very different view. He's not from my high school, not middle school. It's like extracurricular.
What was his view? What do you mean he had a different view?
Like he stayed in Germany for 9 years back then. That was a very unique experience. And he's very open-minded, always introducing stories or point of view of Westerners. So he didn't always stress on getting good grades as a purpose. So in this way, actually, he inspired us to learn more.
Right. Not good grades. I mean, was he accepted amongst the Chinese students? Because Chinese students, I mean, it's mostly for the grades, not for the communication efforts, usually. Because if they don't
Yeah,
get
but
the good
as a
grades,
result,
then they don't get a good university. They don't get a good university. They don't get a good job. They don't get a good job. I mean, ugh, what do you do?
nice. Well, looking back, it's actually not the truth. But anyway, I mean, now we know it's not the truth. But back then, it's not saying getting worse grade is okay, but like saying your studying is not for getting a good grades only. But actually, as a result, everyone are very interested learning English, and the results are not bad at all for everyone in the class. And many students from his class are very successful in different terms
Right.
now.
So when did you decide like interpretation? Because I mean, I guess you would still consider yourself pretty early in your career. I mean, how many years have you been doing interpretation and translation for? A few years now, right?
A few years, yeah, after university and trying that already.
And so,
Not simultaneous
right,
interpreting level.
yeah. What inspired you to go ahead and become an interpreter and translator?
I actually, the reason is just very simple. I'm learning English. I like learning language, and for us, the highest level you can go is become an interpreter. So there's not too much puzzle for me. I want to become the best, and that's where I can go.
But what do you mean the highest level is becoming an interpreter?
Like everyone can speak English, but not everyone can interpret. Not everyone can do simultaneous interpreting.
Yeah, English is such an easy language. I mean, spend a weekend you could learn English, right? Some people
Of
believe
course, of course.
some people believe that. Then they show up and you're like, I don't know what you're saying in English, but we'll go with it. So okay, so with the love of learning languages, I mean, are you learning anything else? I think you also know some Spanish too, don't you?
Yeah, I'm learning Spanish now.
Learning, and so how's that going?
It's going okay. I think I can communicate with people, but I still lacking the sufficient vocabularies. Sometimes I just forget vocabularies, and in China, I actually didn't have too much chance to use it. I'm not in this circle of Espanoles,
Right.
the Spanish person.
there there is a Spanish community though in Beijing. Like surprisingly, quite a few people actually speak Spanish. I mean, I know some colleagues they actually speak Spanish quite well. They are fluent. I mean, they have to be here somewhere.
I heard there's a big group, but I wasn't in. And yeah, in the future maybe.
Are you attempting to become the best in Spanish as well so you could do trilingual interpretation?
That's would be very ambitious with my pace of learning or this effort I invested. I doubt, but I really hope I can have a sufficient level of communicating, like on a daily use.
How much is that? I mean, I could give you the daily use of Chinese, jiga, jiga, 多少钱, Weixin, 支付宝, there, you're done. That's all the Chinese you need to know.
No, I want to have deeper communications. I want to have a really talk conversation, deeper level. And so far, it's quite superficial. When I want to go deeper, I have to, change it back to English. Yeah.
Right.
So that's really.
Are you reading any books in Spanish as well? Like, are you attacking Spanish the same way that you attacked English?
Yeah, of course not. Um, but I tried watching Spanish TV series. I actually, for me, like watching this visual and audio uh, stimulation is better than reading a book. That's really slow and put me to sleep. But I tried Spanish TV series. Too much in high school. Come on.
Yeah.
But it's actually pretty tiring. I can watch English no problem for like all the episodes, seasons, no problem for one day. But with Spanish, maybe two or three episodes, that's like, yeah, it's enough. Yeah, I want to go to sleep for a while. It's, yeah, you hear and it's tiring because it's new to me.
Right. How long are the episodes? Like 20 minutes or an hour?
42.
42. Okay, so about 2.5 hours is when you're like, okay, my brain's done.
Yes, yes. I can watch more, but then I can basically reading the subtitles.
Yeah, yeah.
That's also okay. Actually, it's also hobby, but it's again tiring.
So you're reading Spanish subtitles with that.
English sometimes, yeah, preferably Spanish and English, Spanish or Chinese. Yeah, if
Right.
you have double, that really helps.
Yeah,
It depends. You normally not always find those.
so 2.5 hours. I mean, that's a pretty long time to be watching TV, and you're able to understand quite a bit of it, or you're just watching it in sort of more extensive exposure rather than intensive exposure.
More extensive, more
Right.
extensive. But after a while, that actually helped. I did that with English. Yeah, day out. that
I,
that helped.
but is the Spanish television as interesting as English television, or I mean, does it keep
Actually,
you as
yes. But
what are you watching?
yes, yeah. Um, long time. They don't have that many, I have to say, and their topics are quite fixed, and their actors or actresses are somehow very limited, either in Spain or Mexico. Are very limited. I always see similar face, so this is a little bit downside. But yeah, it's uh, a very long time ago. I remember one called Grand Hotel. So basically, I'm also more into this language thing. So as long as it's not that boring, I will, yeah, continue to finish it. And the other is El Barco, the shape. It's a little bit like the Lost in English,
Okay, yeah.
like the end of the day of the world story. Different types, different types. And I recently, what is the name? It's a very famous.
I lost you. Try that again. There we go. Admit. All right. Good. There. Again. Goodness. Allow to record. Was that my connection or your connection?
Uh, Depends. I don't know. I had just had online class, and it was okay.
Right. Okay.
It
Well,
could be mine.
yeah. Okay, we'll do it that way. All right. Well, I lost you at when you were telling us about the wonderful TV, the Spanish television that you were watching.
Anyway, is that important?
Is it better? So you're
You want to
saying,
know?
well, I lost the one of the last episode, the last title. I'm not sure what it was, but I got two of the titles, and then the last one I didn't get.
Yeah, it was actually from South Korea,
Oh,
and then it's been redubbed into all different languages, and then I watch it in Spanish.
oh, I see. So it's like translated,
Redubbed.
redubbed. Oh, okay. Oh, one of those ones. Do
You
you like
hear
those? Yeah. Do you like those redubbed
they
versions?
did it
Because
very good.
okay, some of them can
They
be
did it
kind of
very
funny.
good. You don't feel.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. I just try to find all these Spanish materials I can get.
And so why Spanish? Why are you doing Spanish now?
Love the people.
How many have you met? I mean, you live in Beijing.
I went to Sweden before. I backpacked all across Europe. I meet different people in different city. I always go connect with local peoples, and they give me a feeling. And anyway, I need to choose a foreign language as my second foreign language beside English. So either German, French, or Spanish. So back then, my Spanish was really not good. I learned actually Swedish in Sweden, and then I came back. I need to learn Spanish again for this third year all by myself.
Right.
But that's the reason I went to Spain. I met the local people. I love the people and culture, so I decided to go, yeah, for it.
How long?
Actually, if learning French may have a better future.
Why is that? There's more Spanish speakers than French speakers, aren't there?
I don't want to talk it over here, but the reality is either German or French is better in the market. Had
Well,
better, a bigger difference.
in that situation, I've always had the if I've ever faced with the choice between one or the other, I usually do both and then choose a third one on top of that because I mean, you don't have to make it, you don't have to commit to any one, especially with a language. You can learn as much or as little as you like.
If you can, my capacity is limited. I cannot start with two and learn nothing out of it. Even only Spanish, that takes me a lot of energy, and it's actually harder than Spanish than English.
Yes, once you know Spanish well enough, French will be a lot easier. Because I mean, English and Spanish, I tease people and say that they're the same language, but they're not. I understand. Like with Spanish, there's a lot of declensions and things like that, and particles. French is very similar to that in that regard. So I mean, it's not like going from English to another European language. It's yeah, Spanish, French, and Italian are all very similar. They're usually grouped together in the Romance languages. So I mean, once you get those declensions, I was going to ask you, do you do a lot of your conjugations and declensions every day, 20 minutes in the morning?
No, that's the most difficult part in Spanish. The grammar wise is actually quite easy to understand. It's almost like English, and even if I made some mistake, that's actually okay. But with all this conjugation, it's such a nightmare.
Really?
I
What's wrong with
learned
the
like
what trips you up with the conjugations?
never. I can never remember. They are all looks similar. You have six in each tense. With English, I have never complained English anymore.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. How are there different moods in Spanish as well, like the passive and the aorist and the what's the other? There's passive and
Of
active.
course.
How many moods are there in Spanish?
You see, passive, passive, active, yes. But mainly it's more like, present continuous, uh, future, different way of future, different way of past, and past perfect. Everything English have. And also this 属红 is subjunctive
Yeah, subjunctive.
in
Yeah,
English.
I would, should, could.
Yeah, but that Yeah, but in Spanish, that's very, very common. It's way more common than in English. So this is a big difference. And it's just with all this conjugation, I always make mistake. And normally Spanish start with conjugation verbs. That basically you open your mouth, you don't know which word you're going to choose.
Yeah, that yeah the because I'm learning Russian at the same time, and it's tough to remember exactly which verb do you use to connect, and how does the ending of that object fit in with the verb that you just said? And goodness knows, and if you use the infinitives for anything, like just to do something all the time, I mean, then you sound like a robot. But it simplifies things greatly.
Okay, maybe I can try that. But yeah, this part is really hard for me. The rest is okay. Then I just need to memorize more vocabulary, which I'm not doing it now.
Yeah. So when you get up in the morning, do you like review this type of vocabulary, or do you just watch your TV instead?
Now, no, I'm not doing any of it.
Oh,
I'm just learning Spanish with
just
my teacher.
why didn't you continue learning Swedish? I mean, did Swedish not draw you in like the same way that Spanish draws so many people in?
Come on, not at all. Why Swedish?
Why why
Sorry
not
for Swedish friends.
the
Why?
but you were in Sweden for a few months though, right? You were longer than you were in Germany.
A year,
A year.
a
I
year.
okay. So I mean, did you
I tried, I learned, and I
right?
thought
And how did that go?
hard. So this is like it actually could be. I cannot see it fairly now, but it's actually could be as hard as Spanish because it's the same. They also have this conjugation for the six persons
Yeah.
pronouns. But back then, that was actually my first time to know this conjugation thing. With English, it doesn't have. So, but then the second time when I get access to Spanish, I know this is not my first time. I know this is hard, but with Spanish and all the students, all my classmates are from European. For them, it's easier to learn. And they even don't need to come to the class, and the Germans already can read half of the Swedish.
Yeah,
And
right.
they even see the time like in exact order or the exact way, like 5 minutes to 30. So like 25, they use different ways, and they like Dutch, German, and Swedish. They use the same thing. And for us, it's like everything is new. All the sounds are different. So, but generally speaking, it's just I'm not going back for living or for settling down. And here's not too many sweets. And we don't have too much connection anyway. And all the best part is all the Swedes speak excellent English.
Yes. Yeah.
You don't find the push to learn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
If
that's
they come to
probably
China, we better learn Chinese.
it's a lot. Yeah, Chinese you can have a bit more of an immersive experience, especially if you're not in like Beijing, especially not Shanghai. Like if you didn't go to Shanghai and went to another big city, like even Xi'an or any one of the north like Dongbei region, I mean, you're gonna have to learn Chinese. But yeah, I've heard this before that a lot of people who move to Europe never really have to learn the local language unless they're living in small town nowheresville, basically.
No, you can just go to Madrid or other even like smaller cities in Spain. You will find the push to learn Spanish.
Yeah.
English is not enough in that country. You have to learn, or even maybe Italy, you need to learn Italian.
A lot of Italian. I always got the sense that Italian was more of a point of pride. Like they're very proud about their language, and if like if you only speak English to them, I mean, I was only in Italy for like a week and a half, but and this was years ago. But it was always sort of I got the sense that it was if you speak English, you're one of those American travelers, and so it wasn't the same as if you tried to actually speak some Italian. But again, very limited experience in living in Italy. I don't know. Are you going to learn Italian next? It's similar to Spanish, isn't it? They're going to get mad at me for that one.
I will just first nail down the Spanish. That's already my final goal,
Are
and I
you?
think that will take.
Yeah. Do you have a time limit for Spanish? Like after a certain time, you're like, okay, you know what? Not doing it.
Why not? As long as my time allows, I'd like to continue. Yeah,
Right.
but I have to admit I didn't put enough efforts on it. I just now it's not like the school days. It's like it's not my priority, but this is like my hobby. So I want to learn and I try, but I'm not full in. But I want to be as good as possible.
Do you find it difficult to motivate yourself? Because I mean, you're a Chinese teacher, English teacher, interpreter. I mean, you're busy as it is. Do you find it hard to motivate yourself to learn yet another language to go through the same gauntlet of grammar and suffering of being a child in another language again?
Actually, yes. I have a teacher, so he helps me, and we so my currently so before, especially during the lockdown period, that's like last year, I have more my own free time, so I can really use it to learn. I really learned, but since this year, or I mean 2021, then I started as a freelancer. So my focus totally shifted. So since then, I try learning with my teacher in the class. Before, it's like I spent a lot of time after the course, and I actually have like one-on-one class almost every day, 4 or 5 times per week. But now it's different. But generally speaking, yes, it's hard because we kind of already forgot like how we started all this embarrassing period with learning English. So now we are at least fluent in English. And now when I want to express myself in Spanish, I need to think every word, especially this conjugation, everything. That's like really a torture. And I have a big tendency that to switch it into English because I can, but in Spanish I cannot. That's terrible.
Do you find yourself translating? Do you find yourself translating from Chinese into Spanish or English into Spanish? Which one, like, sort of?
Definitely English to Spanish.
Really?
Definitely never Chinese. Chinese is not in the middle at all. Yeah, it doesn't help.
Wow.
The Spanish and English is a similar order and everything, mentality, everything. It's very helping. Actually, having the knowledge of English really helps learning Spanish. But if I think the other way around, if you have Spanish knowledge first, you will get way easier to learn English.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
It's just
That.
easier.
So with all your knowledge, I mean, are you planning to go live somewhere else, or are you living China for forever and ever and ever?
I would love to work in either English native speaking countries or Spanish native speaking countries, Spain, Latin America, yeah, or just some countries in Europe. If I had opportunity just to work for a few years, I would love have that experience.
Any
But so
names
far,
in
it's still
particular?
hard. And names of what countries?
Yeah. Any place in particular?
Cities, city-wise, or like for example, not really, not really. Just Germany, Spain, Latin America, uh, England, and America.
Right. Okay.
So I have a very clear focus with the language thing.
Yeah. Do you think you would
Germany, maybe not.
Germany? I mean, Germany's not hard to like at all. I mean, a lot of people say good things about Germany all the time. Same with Europe. It's just as an English teacher for us, for me as a Canadian, uh, we can't get visas very easily. Like to get the proper work permits, it's difficult because even though the UK has now sort of separated from the mainland of Europe, it's difficult to uh, get that proper permission to go work in the mainland. So there's no money. And if you, not like here in China, if you work for one company, you make all your money with that company. You don't really have to find work elsewhere. But Europe, you have to cobble together a bunch of sort of freelance gigs to make decent money and to save money as well. I mean, is that what you'd be thinking about doing as well? Getting, or would you go to sort of like find a company or an agency to go work for?
I actually don't know if I can get that kind of work with. I can work for as a freelancer. That would definitely be the most ideal scenario. But I'm not sure as a foreigner whether I can do it. I mean, especially I'm not from European Union, whether I can have that or not. Because
Yeah.
in China, I mean, it's easy for me to be a freelancer, but for foreigners that could be very troublesome.
So does all this stuff does it ever affect how you teach Chinese to your young students, your young adult students who are like, yeah, I can speak Chinese. Jigga 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 jigga. Wei xin.
Why? What do you mean by that?
Do
Why
you
is that
so
gonna
all
change our
you're learning Spanish, you've learned English.
right?
I mean, you've tried to learn Swedish, it didn't work out, no problem. Does this at all affect any
I
of
try to
your
learn Cantonese.
Cantonese? Do you know Cantonese?
Vocal, little, yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well,
Yeah, I
Cantonese
can
is
understand quite.
very, very difficult itself. But does all your language learning affect how you teach Chinese?
That actually more affects my mentality, and that actually reflect in my class. With teaching, actually learning all these years in English, that helps me for my way of teaching, and that's the most helpful part. I have gone through all the tests, all this, yeah, just different level of English learning process. So yeah, that gives me a perspective how to teach.
What would have been
But
the
learning
biggest
language
change?
indeed help you. Hmm?
What would have been the biggest
What?
change to your teaching methodology? I mean, coming as a student teaching your language, I mean, what was the biggest change, would you say?
Interactive teaching gives students more chance to speak and express themselves, and give them the words or vocabularies that they need for their like reality. And whatever they need, I provide them. Otherwise, if you only go through or with all the books, then this vocabulary they will never ever use it another time. So yeah, then it's yeah useless for them.
Are you saying that the HSK books aren't very useful, that they're just grammar and
I'm
vocab?
not saying that. No, I'm not. Did I?
You didn't, but
Didn't
I would
recall.
point my I would point my fingers at those. Those books are just very grammar focused. That's my one issue with them. But I mean, it's just a lot of words. That's all.
And
Well,
really, I actually find that okay.
yeah, the HSK 5 books, and I want to get through HSK 6 by the end of next year if I can. If I'm still in China, who knows? I mean, anything can happen at this point. I mean, who knows what's going to happen? But you have to get going already. So if people want to get in touch with you to learn more about your Chinese teaching services or interpretation services, where can they find you?
I have a website called www.clingo.com, and all my contact is on it.
All right. You'll have to send me a link. I'll put that up on my website for the show notes. This is episode number 29 already. All right. Well, cool. Thank you very much. That's interpreter, translator, and teacher, right? Am I missing any other labels?
Enough. Thank you.
That's good. All right. Cheers. Thanks, Chen. Thanks for the time. Appreciate you taking the time. I know you're a very busy lady with all your students and your gig, your freelance appointments. Okay. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you. Thank
Okay.
you. Bye
Talk
bye.
again. Bye
Take
bye.
care.
And that was episode 29 with Qian Wang. I hope you guys enjoyed that conversation about learning languages. There's a lot of intensive talk about how to approach languages, both from the student perspective, mostly from the student perspective, and also from the teacher's perspective. If you want to get in touch with Qian, of course, head on over to our website. I do have the show notes up on my website, stevensersky.com. This is episode number 29. Folks, thanks for listening. We'll talk again. Bye-bye.